In this video, I'm going to be showing off this boombox I made, and I'm going to be going over how I made it a little bit. So this is actually based on a couple of videos from DIY Perks. He has a couple of videos where he makes Bluetooth boomboxes and Bluetooth amplifiers and several sound projects, and I'll have the link in the description. But basically I took a couple ideas from a couple different videos of his and turned them into my own project, and then I added a bunch of my own ideas to that. So let's see, when I built this, the main goal was for it to be cheap, and so I think I only spent like 20 bucks on this when I initially built it. I ended up adding a little more later on, but I think initially it was just 20 bucks. And other thing I wanted is I wanted to be really robust. I wanted to take it camping and outside, and you know, in the wood shop where it's really dusty, and I wanted to be able just to throw it in the back of my car and not worry that it might slide around and bump into stuff. So the other goal was to make it really robust. So let's see, let's talk a little bit about how it works. So it's powered by this battery pack, and I think it's a Talent Cell, I can't remember. It's got the sticker underneath this Velcro. I've got this Velcro pad on the battery pack because you can stick it onto stuff and then charge your phone off the USB port. And so that's really nice. I really like this battery pack because of its rectangular shape. I can just I can plug it in to stuff like that. And I've actually built a couple of different things besides this boombox, which accepts this battery as a plug-in power supply. Really like that power supply. I've got this handle right here, and unfortunately it's not quite in the center of balance because that would get in the way of the battery, but it's close enough. It works out pretty well. The handle is held in, of course, with the two screws, but because the material that the box is made from is 1/2" MDF, I needed, the screws are actually JB welded in as well, so it doesn't slip. The boombox is quite heavy, heavier than a gallon of milk for sure. It might be 10 pounds, so it's pretty heavy, not too heavy. It's just a steel grate on the front, and unfortunately the grate is actually built into the box. I put this trim on the front to hold the grate in, and then I put this is covered in Formica, countertop Formica, and I put that on over the trim, so I can't access the front of the speaker anymore. If one of the speakers breaks or something, I don't know what I'm going to do. But it makes it a really good job of protecting everything and looking really good. I've got these pads on the top here, and these are just super cheap non-slip pads for your cell phone, and they're really useful to have because I can hold my phone, I can take it carried around, and I have to lean this thing over quite a lot before the phone slides off, so you can just have your phone on there and carry this thing around and walk around with it. Let's see, what else we got. On the back, I've got this control panel, and it's really nice because it's got this recess I put in there, and so you just kind of reach around from the front, and you can feel these two switches change the gain mode. These two are volume up, volume down. This is the play pause. And these are the skip buttons there. And on the back, I mentioned I've got other things that are powered from this 12-volt power supply. Well, what happens if I want to be using my camp light, which is powered off 12 volts, while I'm listening to music? So I put in these male-female adapters on the back of the box, so I can go in and I can plug this in and plug in to my light, or plug in whatever. And I usually just have this sitting plugged in on a shelf in my room, and this boombox actually makes a great place to just keep this battery so that it's always charged, which is really nice. And so I just always have this plugged into a 12-volt supply, and that's really nice because this is actually designed for like a 12.4 volt charge to fully charge the lithium cells. But by just charging it to 12 volts, I'm undercharging this just a tiny bit, so it'll last longer. So anyway, that works out really nice. And then I've got 2 USB ports so that you can charge your phone while you're listening to music. So that's all very good. And let's see, this seal, if you can tell, is actually paracord, and I'll show you how that works. I really wanted something to look good and be this nice vivid red that would also, anyway, I was really happy with what I figured out here, but I think I could have done a little better. Let me show you. So these screws were at one point painted red. This boombox is over a year old, by the way, so it's been through a lot already, and it's held up really well, and really enjoyed it. There's quite a few audiobooks on it already. Got these non-slip pads on the bottom. That's just nice. Okay, so the seal is actually craft foam with paracord sheath around the outside, and they're just glued together, and so the paracord makes it look nice from the outside, and the craft foam provides the seal. But I think I could get away with actually just using paracord as the seal. I think that would have worked. A paracord seal. Okay. So on the back here, let's look at the panel. These are just the male-female power 12-volt jacks, the barrel plugs, and then these are the 2 USB ports. And what I did for the USB ports is the battery pack actually has a USB port option, and what it is, I took this battery pack apart, figured out what little board they had in there to convert the 12 volts to the USB, and I headed off to eBay and I got 2 more of those little boards for like $3 each. And unfortunately you can't really see them because they're covered with a silicone. They're held in on the front with JB weld. You might be able to pick up on that a little bit, see that? And on the back, these plugs need a little bit of structural support. So this is actually Gorilla construction adhesive. Works really well. For this button panel, to make it recessed, all I did was, I think I just used a jigsaw to cut out this oval. And then I mounted the buttons and everything to a very thin 1/4 inch sheet of MDF with melamine on it, black melamine, and put those all in the array, and I screwed and glued it in place, and the glue is just to act as a seal. So it's just another piece of wood just butted on to the back of this board. So on the inside, to make it look nice on the inside, I just used countertop edge banding, which is really nice. And then the box itself is finished with black countertop Formica. And so before I put the Formica on it, it was just MDF. Okay, let's take a look on the inside here. Alright, so on the inside you can see here's the box which accepts the battery. And Velcroed to the side of that, I have the little amplifier board. And this has got the Bluetooth module on it right here. You can see that little squiggly line is the Bluetooth antenna. The blue one's the Bluetooth board. And the rest of this is the amplifier board. And what I've done is I've just soldered all my wires directly to the solder pads next to the buttons or next to the switches or next to the power jack. But I've soldered them all directly to the board, and then I've secured them with a little tiny bit of hot glue. And that's all I did with that. I really love using Velcro to hold little things on. Velcro works really well if you're to try to screw this on, if you ever need to move it or take it off again, or add some more solder leads to it. It'd be a lot more trouble than if it was just Velcro. And the Velcro it works. There's no reason why you would need to upgrade to something else for just a little small board like that. Also, this board is like, I think it was like 12 bucks. So it's a really cheap board as well, just on eBay. I'll have a link in the description for that too. I just got the speaker drivers from thrift store bookshelf speakers. So I guess I spent like $4 per bookshelf speaker, and I got 2 of those. So it was $12 for this and $8 in speakers. And yeah, that's basically all the money I spent directly on this at first, until I started putting all these power and USB plugs on it. So these mid-range speakers, you can see, are kind of partitioned off in their own section. So they have their own airspace, and how that's constructed is just with a cardboard cylinder that has a cap glued onto it made from MDF. And then the MDF has a hole drilled through it to wire it up, and then it's just sealed again with the hot glue. The large speaker, what I did to figure out the size of air volume I needed for my box is I just took and measured the volume of the speaker that I took the driver from. So instead of doing any calculations or figuring out myself, I just trusted the fact that someone already put some thought into designing this speaker. And that may or may not have been a good idea, because it actually was a pretty cheap speaker. So they may not have put the most thought into it. And I figured that after I messed around with the ports. So these are actually right here, and here are the air ports that came from the speaker I stole the drivers from. And I just cut them out and I stuck them in here. And it didn't take me long to figure out that it sounded a lot better without the ports. So they're just covered with duct tape. And so yeah, so maybe these speakers, maybe I could have done a little testing and found a lot better of a sound volume, air volume for the speaker, but whatever. And then, of course, and then they got these tweeters in here. The tweeters are all self-contained, so I don't have to worry about the air volume for them. So I'm not unhappy at all with how this turned out. I'm really quite satisfied. But there are a couple of things I would change if I was to do this over again. So let me get this get this secured first. So the first thing I would do is I would take a little more time and care into figuring out which drivers I wanted to use, instead of just using whatever was cheapest at hand. For not very much more time, money, or effort, I could have made this thing sound much, much better. And as I said, I'm not dissatisfied. It's just I realized that there was a missed opportunity there, and I just wasn't bothered with it at the time. The other, another thing I would change is I would change how I secure the grill on the front, make it so I can take it off. If I had done that, maybe I could update the drivers I was using. But because I can't get this grate off, I can't get this big driver off. And I can't get rid of the distortion that this driver has at higher volumes. Just can't do it. Just have to deal with it. The other thing I would do is, like I said, I've got this 12 volt power supply that I love using. I've got a bunch of stuff I use it for, and I've got all these 12 volt ports that I put on the back so I can use different stuff, but I never have my wires with me. And, you know, I've got, you know, the ports for the USB for charging phones, but I don't have the cords with me when I bring this with me. So I would have put a little compartment built in as the place to store the cords. So this Boombox is where I store and keep the battery charged, and it could be where I keep and store the cords as well. That would have made it so much nicer. So, anything else I need to say? I don't think so. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments below, and I'll get around to them as best I can. And there we go. There's my Bluetooth Boombox.